Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome. My name is Agnes Piercy. I'm an instructor here at UAGC and host for this session, Integration of Systems Approach and Learner-Centered Teaching. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Timothy Cedor, professor at Dallas College.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session. And if you're like me on the east side of Arizona, good afternoon. What we're going to talk about today is some of the ways that we might want to consider changing our approach to education and adapting a more of a learner-centered style of education. The image you see in my background, I went to Baylor, so that is our main administrative building on campus. It's Pat Neff Hall. So that's a little bit about the background that you see there on your screen. Three big things that we're going to want to talk about today. So basically, I'm going to talk for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll kind of turn it over for a Q&A. Some of those questions that I'm going to talk about today, they're going to be on the PowerPoints that you see. There are also some things that I preloaded into the conference. So if you've taken a look at those questions, those are going to be some of the things that we're going to talk about today and try to come up with some answers to those very tough questions to try to come up with answers to. So we're going to start by taking a look at why we might want to consider changing our educational system from what we're currently doing. Assuming that we do want to change our system from the one that we're currently at, we're going to look at some design. We're going to look at some learner-centered designs that are working at different places across the country. And then we're going to wrap up by evaluating our current teaching practices and some of the things that we're doing at an institutional level and how we can more align those as well. So let's start by taking a look at why it might be time to systematically change the education system. And this whole presentation kind of revolves around this quote by Seymour Papert that I saw a few years ago. He basically said, "We imagine a school in which students and teachers excitedly and joyfully stretch themselves to their limits in pursuit of projects built on vision, not one that succeeds in making apathetic students satisfying minimal standards." And that just caused me to kind of look at what I saw taking place in my classroom over the last couple of years. Sometimes it just seems as if students are checking off boxes, things to get done. They're not necessarily engaging with the content, and they're doing that for a wide variety of reasons. So some of the things that I have done over the last couple of years is try to find ways to make students engage in the content that I have. One of those ways is I teach a core course. I teach English 1301 and English 1302, and then a couple sections of British literature, because at the community college, we have a lot of students who want to transfer to four-year schools, and they're here to get their basics out of the way. But a couple of years ago, I looked into that, and what I found is that not only in my core courses, but in some of the core courses that some of you may teach, we actually are teaching students marketable skills. And we need to get them to pay attention to what those skills are in our classroom. And so that was one of the ways that I've adapted. This presentation will focus on some of the other ways outside of marketable skills. But if you're interested in that marketable skills conversation, send me an email, and I'll drop my email in the chat when I get done with the presentation. We can talk about that as well. But the other thing that I've noticed as I've been looking at colleges is that we have shifted drastically from the way that even K-12 schools were set up in the past. School was originally designed to meet the needs of the industrial age. Its goal was to separate people into laborers and managers, and that was kind of going to be your career path. But we don't live in that age necessarily anymore. Our students live in what is commonly being referred to as the information age. Everything they need to know is just a couple of clicks on their phone or a computer away, but they still need to engage with the learning to learn things. But now a relationship is very important in the educational process, where normally you came in, I was the bearer of all information you would need. You sit there, you listen to me, you take some tests to demonstrate that you have learned what I told you and which one of these camps you're going to fall into. But the classroom isn't necessarily working that way anymore. Our learners are coming to us with a wide variety of pre-existing knowledge. As I said earlier, most of the knowledge they're looking for is usually just a couple of clicks away on their phone. And so what we're going to look at today is how to balance this evolving classroom that doesn't look like the classroom that education was set up to do. And one of the ways that we're going to have to systematically change the education system is to move it to a more active participation kind of environment. My classes aren't necessarily sit there and get. I want to meet with the student, find out where they are, where they're trying to get, and give them more control of the situation. Because I have found in the last couple of years, when I make my education lessons more individualized instead of a one size fits all, which was an approach to teaching that I was taking earlier, getting far better results from the student. And that's because, as Crumley found in their study, individualized learning supersedes standardized learning. And we kind of need to move away from the standardized environment that we have been a part of into this more individualized learning where we are meeting the learners where they are and helping them address the questions, comments, concerns that they have. Another thing is a mindset shift that I happened on about 7-ish years ago. Is I found that myself and a lot of the teachers that I worked with, sometimes we often assume the worst of students. And again, I don't want to get sidetracked here, but AI is one of those ways that I see that in my current English department. We assume that students are going to use AI to write their essay, not to help them make their essay better. And so, what if we kind of took some of these assumptions that we have about our students and flipped them around? For instance, a lot of teachers have a late work policy, and on the surface, it seems that that's a very common sense approach to education. There are deadlines. If I hadn't turned my proposal into the University of Arizona to present at this conference, I wouldn't be presenting at this conference if I'd have turned it in a couple of days late, would not have made those cuts. And so it seems natural that the real world has deadlines. And so let's give students deadlines too, and let's enforce those deadlines. And all of that is well and good, but there is another side of that coin that we should be examining as well. Deadlines encourage students to rush, and when we rush, we often don't do the best work that we can. Also, why was the due date chosen? And at the end of the day, a lot of due dates are fairly arbitrary. And so, what if we give students more ownership into when they're going to do things and how they're going to do things? And so, we will look at some of that as we go along today as well. But basically, what we have is we have a lot of teachers who are trying to piecemeal different structures, and this is institutions as well. We're trying to piecemeal what worked in the past and what seems to be innovative in society right now. And we're trying to get those things to work together, and they often don't get good results. And so, what that means is if we can't take parts to make better, we're actually going to have to shift the whole education that we're using. And so, that's kind of what that second bullet point talks about there. We're not really going to be banking this education anymore. Whoever collects the most knowledge, has the most degrees, all of those things that the education system relies on, that's not necessarily going to be the winner anymore. What we need to do is we need to shift away from that mindset of collecting information to actually posing problems to our students, having them critically examine these problems either through their own experiences or through the experiences of the others that are in the same room with them, and then arriving at knowledge that's actually going to work to solve the problems that they are trying to solve. And so all of that is kind of the background for what we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about. And so if you are looking to move your classroom into more of a learner system instruction, some of these strategies that we're going to look at for the next few minutes have worked either in my classroom or they have worked in classrooms across the country. And I've kind of tweaked what they've done to work in my classroom as well. It's not an easy transition moving into this learner-centered learning. So let's take a look real quick at 4 of the biggest problems that you may encounter and give you some advice, and you'll actually see that some of these are the big questions because even I haven't arrived at what I think the answer, or what the answer is to some of these questions. But mastery judgment is one of the issues that you may have, especially as you work with your colleagues to try to figure out what you're going to do with these learner-centered systems. How do we know when a student has reached mastery? For too often, we've relied on 90 to 100 equals A, 80 to 89 equals a B, but sometimes the grade that the student is getting doesn't really match what they have learned in the course. Sometimes the grade is too high. They haven't mastered the A, but due to extra credit and some of the other things, or maybe they're just a good test taker. Some of those things have helped them reach a level that maybe they didn't necessarily get to. But the opposite of that is true as well. Again, I work with a lot of English students, and the ability to write an essay is wide ranging. And I have some students who know the grammar rules perhaps better than I do, but what they can't do is they can't put those into an essay. And so, when I grade their essay, it looks like they're a C student, maybe a B student. But when I talk to them, and I work through their learning process, they're actually a lot further along than that grade would indicate. And so we're going to have some conversations about what mastery looks like moving forward as well. One of the other things that I struggle with is how much an assignment is worth or how much a project is worth. I know some professors break their class down and tests are worth 60% and homework is worth 40%. Everybody uses a different range. Some people make those ranges equal. And so why are we giving weight to certain things? And that kind of leads to that next bullet point as well. Why do some things have extra value? Why do some things have extra weight? What happens if we weigh everything out the same? About 3, maybe 4 years ago, I don't use an average system anymore. I have a point system in my class, and students can use certain assignments to get to certain point levels. I know a few other professors who have contracts with the students. They sign a contract. I'm going to do this work in an attempt to make a B in the class. I'm going to do this work in an attempt to make a C. And so they give students choice about where they want to arrive. And so these are going to be some questions that are going to be difficult to arrive at a solid answer to, because we all bring a different view of the correct answers to these questions. But we need to have these conversations so that as we are designing things, we are making it and making sure that we teach students to the level that they need to be taught to. And then the other thing that's really been an issue as I've moved into this is the time. How do teachers balance the demands of students doing different things? For instance, one of the things that I do in one of my English classes is students have to write 5 essays throughout my basic 1301 course. But one of those essays does not have to be an essay. One of the things that I've allowed students to do with some success in the last year or two is they actually make a video. And that video has to be captioned. And so not only am I grading the content of the video and the information that they gave me, but I'm paying a lot more attention to those captions, because that's where I'm capturing the grammar activity that they were supposed to learn in the class. And so sometimes videos can be much longer to grade than an essay was. And sometimes I have to have conversations, and I know I had a lot of these conversations when I was considering doing this activity. Is this sounds like a speech course? So why would I want to go down this particular route? But as I said earlier, not all of our students are natural writers. They won't always be writing a compare and contrast essay as an example in their classes. A lot of what we do is also spoken communication as well. So am I really filling the needs of what I'm supposed to do, and also meeting the needs of how the student is going to use this in real life? So um, going a little more in depth into those 4 areas that we would need to focus on when it comes to mastery judgment. When all of these topics are varied from student to student, how do I prove that the student has turned in work that shows mastery of this content? Going back to that example that I gave a minute ago, are correct captions really the same mastery of the content as a student who chose to who decided to write the 3 to 5 page essay for this particular assignment? And how are we going to compare and demonstrate and show that they have learned what they need to do in that particular area? It causes me to come to the next question that you see on their screen. Is the common definition of mastery really a good thing? I know this was an issue that I had a lot when I was in college. I was not a good math student at all, and that's exactly where this example comes from. But how much math should I really have to learn? I knew long ago that math was not going to be a critical component of what I do for a living. And so how much of that do I need to show in order to actually show that I know enough math to be successful in what I'm going to do? Even in my life right now, Brightspace calculates my averages. I don't have to get out a calculator like I did 20 years ago and add everything up. I don't have to do those things anymore. And so what kind of mastery do I need? Because yes, the critical thinking skills that I learned in my college algebra class, I still use those critical thinking skills today. But if you were to go back and look at my college transcript and look at my math grade, it's not going to be a good thing. And so how do we balance this to show that the student has learned, even though they don't necessarily do the standard that we may have been using in the past? One of the things that you see on the screen is about 3 years ago. We have a partnership here at Dallas College with Texas A&M. And what happens is some of their students who are going to be engineers, they come to Dallas College, and it's different from student to student. Most of them are here for a year. Some of them are here for 2 years. But they're working on some courses so that when they go down to Texas A&M and join their engineering program down at Texas A&M, they're ready to go. And so I teach a technical writing course that's part of our academy. And I couldn't believe it when I was first picked to teach this class because I have zero engineering knowledge at all. And so one of the things they have to do in my course is they have to write what we call the engineering report project. They basically have to go out and research a project, and then they have to explain that project to me. And so it ends up being about a 10 to 15 page paper. It kind of depends on the student and what their project was. But really what this report does is it models the 100 to 200 to 300 page reports that they're going to have to do later on in their career. It looks a lot like a dissertation, just in engineering form and very much short because we're working with sophomore level students at this point in there. And so one of the things that always concerned me when I first started teaching this course is I was really looking for the commas and the periods and the spellings, and does this make sense? Even to somebody who can't really follow you into the devil of the details. Is it something that I'm still fairly able to follow and get the point that you're making? But the problem was, again, I had zero engineering training at all. Oftentimes, I didn't know if the student's solution was correct, let alone practical. And so over the last couple of years, I've had to try to find a way to balance these kinds of things. I'm not necessarily grading you on whether your project is functional or not. What I'm really helping you with is your ability to communicate what you believe to be the right answer, and then get it into a model that when you get hired and somebody asks you to write one of these reports, you're going to be able to do the quality of work that you have. And so I think fortunately, because I partner up with their engineering teacher here at Dallas College, she's able to give me some feedback, and I'm able to kind of address some of these practicality solutions that we've talked about. But again, I do play a critical role in helping that student be able to communicate at a level that an employer is going to be looking at when they get through with their degree. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the overview. Our assignments, should they be of equal value? Should we have weight distributed assignments? Should tests really count for 2 or 3 times as much as a regular assignment can? We use a lot of rubrics in the English department, so we have to address that middle question as well. No two people are the same. So how do we fairly and accurately assess them without some form of standardization? And that standardization is usually a rubric in the English department. But even with that rubric, two people can use that same rubric and come up with a different score on that particular essay. And when that happens, the students feel that they have been treated unfairly, and that causes a whole host of other problems. To kind of address that issue here at Dallas College, the English teachers meet usually toward the beginning of every year. Sometimes it ends up being at the end of the year. But we try to calibrate. We try to take in assignments. We take students' names off of them. We don't know whose classes they came from. We just know that they were in one of our classes. And then we do use those common rubrics that we do sometimes use with each other on the essays. And we try to calibrate it that way. If we do end up with a different score, it's more of a 90 to an 88 kind of difference in the score than a 90 to an 80 or a 90 to 75 kind of difference in the score. We have big conversations after we score the essay as to why I gave it 10 points and you gave it 8 and you gave it 6. How can we change the wording on the rubric? How can we change our perception of what we thought that wording on the rubric meant to kind of make sure that we're on the same page so that we don't have these kind of issues pop up in the classroom? Um, as I said, time has also been a factor, spending a lot more time doing things as I'm getting used to the new process than I had been in the older ways that I was doing things. And a lot of that starts with the designing of the lesson. I spent a lot of time those first couple of days in class getting to know the students and what are their expectations of what they're going to be doing in the course. Whenever we lay out an assignment, you know, trying to get the expectations of what the students think they're going to be doing in that assignment. And sometimes we tweak the assignment because we want to meet the student where they are. And sometimes we're changing the perspective of the student and trying to grow them into where they want to go. We also deal a lot with the effort as to what is going on. A lot of times I'll hear from students, I spent hours on this assignment. That means I should have gotten a good grade. And so we talk about the quality of work. We talk about the role that effort plays in these assignments. Because sometimes, unfortunately, time on task does not always equal quality. And so, how do we help guide students through some of these different mindsets that they may be bringing? And again, I've talked about this a couple times. If students aren't turning in the same kind of assignment, it's going to cause time issues for the teacher as well. You know, I can no longer sit down and grade essays from start to finish, knowing that they're all going to be in the same kind of model. Sometimes the assignment that I click on the very next one is a different one. And so how do I adjust having to have mindset shifts? Do I grade the essays and then grade the videos? How do I make all of those things work? And so those are just some things that you're going to have to be aware of as you shift over to a learner centered approach as well. And so the last couple minutes that I'm going to talk to you here, kind of want to talk about some things that you're going to have to deal with as you try to align this new system of education inside of your current college and the things that you might already be doing. The first is we have to go back to the drawing board. This first bullet point is probably the most important of all of them. We have to make sure that our institutional goals and visions are aligned. And we have to make sure that they're clearly defined. Talked about a little bit ago using the rubrics. We think that what we put on our rubric is easy to understand, but the students are going to interpret it one way. Teacher A may interpret it one way. So, what are some things we can do to make sure that we are all on the same page so that nobody is really surprised by the outcomes that we end up at? We also have to go back and assess our current teaching practices. And this is one of those things I do it throughout the year. I know some teachers wait until the end of a semester, other teachers wait until the end of the year, but it's something we have to do, whether we do it more frequently or whether we go on a semester kind of break. But we've kind of got to sit back and look how that went. And it's one of the things that we have the opportunity here at Dallas College to do a lot. We offer our students a couple of different choices when they take classes. Some of our students take classes in 8-week sessions. Some of our students take that exact same class, but they take it out over 16 weeks instead. And so what I do is every 8 weeks, because I have a lot of 8-week classes this year, is I kind of take a look in that little dead week between the end of the 8 week and the start of the next 8 week. What went well in that 8 week class, and what do I kind of need to look at? And that can be gathering data from student surveys that I have the students take. It can be looking at grades. It can be looking at a wide variety of different data that we get. One of the other things that we also need to do is we need to identify the silos that exist on our campus. Quite often, teacher A is doing this and teacher B is doing this, and those two teachers never meet to conference about what's going well, what's not going well. And that doesn't only exist between teachers, it also exists between departments on campus. You can have two departments that are serving student needs in similar ways, but these two departments will never meet. And so, what are some of the ways that we can start to break down these silos and bring more voices to the table and get more partnerships on the table. And I think that just feeds into that third bullet point there of mapping our existing processes. This is the way it should be working, but let's take a look and see if that's the way the map is actually flowing. And maybe if we took this barrier down, maybe the map would flow a whole lot smoother into how we go. And that's kind of what this next bullet point is leading into. Where are those areas that we can converge and create opportunity? We've got to be able to connect our assessment and planning, and that's one of the things that I work on here. We have a department called SAC-COC that handles accreditation for colleges here in Texas. And so one of the committees that I've been looking at is looking at those assessments that we do before we turn those reports over to SAC-COC. Where can we connect some of these things? Where can we help teachers better meet some of these standards that we're doing? And again, it all comes back to collaboration, getting teachers into the same room because they're working with the same student, if not similar students, and doing similar things. And so, where can we share these things out? And when we do this, that forces us to use this systems thinking approach. We realize that we are all working together for the same goal instead of me over here trying to do it this way and you over there trying to do it that way. And so, how can we merge these things together and actually get better results than the results that we have been getting? A lot of this revolves around bringing in a lot of pilot programs and doing things that we haven't done before. And I know that the opportunities out there are endless, and sometimes it makes those decisions very tough. And so we have to spend some time making sure that we are choosing the right approach. Just because this looks like the latest and greatest innovation doesn't mean that when we bring it in, it's actually going to work for us. And so we need to spend some more time looking at those approaches. And then I would also test them small, implement them in phases. When I went to that video lesson that I talked about where students can write a video, or I'm sorry, make a video instead of writing an essay, I didn't just throw that into all 6 classes that I was teaching that semester. I started with one, learned some things, tried it again with one. And then when it worked with two, I moved into two, and then I doubled it to four. And so it's slow progression so that you can kind of come back and identify some of those obstacles that you may have missed in the planning stages. I meant for it to work this way. The students didn't take it that way. So where do I have to come back and kind of redesign this? And when you're working in a smaller batch, it makes it easier to find some of those things. And then when you take it to the larger group, not necessarily have some of those problems that you had because you've had time to work them out. And so some of those different ways that you can grow things over time is test and monitor your progress. I talked earlier about marketable skills. Won't talk a whole lot about that in this particular session, but I do. I work with a lot of stakeholders. Even though I didn't know a lot about engineering, I went to an engineering conference 2 years ago. I think is the last time I went to that conference, and I met with engineers and what exactly are you looking for in your students coming out? That way, I have what I learned when I first started teaching the program. I went down to Texas A&M and worked with all of their technical writing teachers to see what they were doing. Kind of compared that to what we were doing here at Dallas College. And then I took it to that next step. Let's go out into the business and let's find out what the businesses want to make sure that we have aligned in those ways as well. And then make sure you're answering that question you see there on the screen honestly. Are the integrations achieving the desired outcomes? Sometimes we like to just say yes and move on. But we really need to stop and answer that question fairly thoroughly so we know whether we need to go back and retweak things as not. When things are starting to catch on, that's when the institution has to get involved on a deeper level, providing the necessary professional development. Is this something that we're going to offer professors through a video? Is this something that we're going to offer a department through a day of training? Are we going to train them once at the beginning, once at the middle, and once at the end? How are we going to get out the information that we need? It also requires us to very carefully document what we are doing so that this process can be repeated. And if there is a problem, we can come back to that document and try to find the right way to proceed. Maybe we need to change that document and rewrite this particular section of the document because in practice, what happened wasn't what we thought was going to happen. And again, that's going to encourage and promote effective communication across the departments, across the teachers who are teaching in those different areas. So I know I went fairly quickly, trying to be respectful of your time, but also give us some time here at the end to kind of talk about issues on maybe more of a specific level and what's happening in your classrooms or at your institutions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cedar. Are there any questions from the audience?
Is it okay if we unmute to ask? I was going to post in the chat, but I figured
Yes, absolutely.
I see everybody's faces. Thank you, Dr. Cedar. Always enjoy your Chronicle articles and your past presentations, so it's great to see you. I took particular note of your slide about discussions about aligning instructional practices or instruction with institutional priorities, objectives. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about how that looks in practice in your experience. I think that's always a challenge, right? The connecting the micro to the macro. So I'd love to hear some more examples.
So I'm going to rely heavily on my marketable skills experience because I've been doing that for probably the last year or two, because that was a big initiative here at Dallas College. We get a lot of Gen Z students who come in and I want something that I'm going to use, kind of like I was when I was a kid. I don't need this algebra class. I'm not going to ever do anything. And I don't need to write a cause and effect essay because I'm going to go work here and we're not going to do that. And so what we had to do is we had to get everybody at the institution involved. One of the things that we did is when we came up with the marketable skills that we were looking for, it wasn't just English teachers who decided what these were. We had two English teachers, we had two biology teachers, two chemistry teachers. It was a room full of us. And we're trying to find out, if the students in my classroom, they're learning it in your classroom too. And it may not be on the same level. For instance, one of the marketable skills that I talk to students about in my 1302 class is qualitative and quantitative data because they use that data to write a research paper. And so I'm talking about it on a certain level, but if they're in a math class, they might be talking about statistics, and now they're talking about it on a huge level. But not only are we teaching you this, but you can walk into a job interview and say, I have the ability to look at data. Here's what I did, and here's what I can do. You can also add that skill onto your resume. And so it's going to help the students in a lot of ways, but that was really the only way we felt we were going to be successful, is if we drew as many of those departments in as we could. And I thought we got a pretty good result from our faculty. There's still quite a few professors who don't use marketable skills in their classes, and that's okay. We still have some convincing that we will need to do over time that, yes, you need to do this, because it also involved me changing my assignments. The direction wasn't anymore go out and write a 3 to 5 page essay and turn it in. Now the direction is very specific because it relates to a very specific marketable skill. I'm going to need you to demonstrate that you did this. And then that exact same marketable skill is on my rubric, and I'm scoring them on a scale of, I'm just going to say 1 to 5 as to how well you met this particular objective. But then it opens that conversation for the student to come in and say, I thought I did really well on this, but you gave me a 3 on this. So what do I need to do to move from a 3 to a 5? And in a way, it gives that student that power because they can come in and they can talk. And sometimes when I talk to students, you know what? I see, it was probably closer to a 4 than a 3. So let me change that particular part of the assignment for you. And it opens up more of a sense of collaboration instead of an us against them mentality, which I know students have toward us. And I do feel that there are some professors who sometimes have that mentality toward their class.
No, I appreciate that example of the broad faculty committees have collectively defined some of these terms that you're going to use in your teaching. That's great. Thank you.
And I just realized I never dropped my email in the chat. So let me drop it in there for those of you who want it as well. And I thought this presentation was an interesting extension of the Marketable Skills Initiative that I have been working on, is getting students to recognize those skills. Because now looking back, I recognize all those critical thinking skills that my math class taught me. 18-year-old me didn't see it that way. And I'm sure my college professors tried to explain it to me and I wasn't picking up on it. But I think when you approach things from this marketable skills that we've been working on with the students, because I asked them on the first day of class, how many of you are in my English class? Because some lady in registration told you you had to take this class to graduate. And they all put their hands up. So now let me give you the real reason and one of the benefits that you will learn from in this class. And I think when you meet students where they are and recognize, hey, I hate to read, it's an okay answer in this class. We're going to work on that particular aspect of things. I don't think my students are as disinterested as they were a couple of years ago. They seem to be engaging more in class.
May I ask what is the class size that you usually have? I'm wondering how you can work with large enrollment classes and to make it individualized learning.
That is going to be a question that depends on who you ask around here. We have had great success with Dallas College in the English department. Freshman English classes, 1301 and 1302, they are capped at 18. And if they want to put a 19th or 25th student in the class, the professor has to give permission for any student over 18. And so we have had great successes. We ran a lot of studies that showed small classes equal better success. But I also office right next door to a government professor who teaches in the lecture hall that I walk past, and there are 100, 150 students in his class. And I will freely acknowledge that he is going to have a much harder time building individual relationships than I do. And so that's one of the things that we are still investigating. I know one of the things that he does is when he tries to end his lecture about 5 to 10 minutes early every day to give students a chance to come talk to him one-on-one. And so that's a way that we can buy back time. And I think that's a strategy that I learned when I shifted from the 16-week class to the 8-week class. You can't cover in 8 weeks what you covered in 16 if you try to say it all. And so you kind of have to pick and choose. Sometimes you have to flip the classroom. The students are going to watch a video instead of coming into class for the lecture and things of that nature. And so I think there are some pretty creative ways to get out there to kind of buy yourself some of that time in the classroom when the student is there directly in front of your face to build those kind of relationships. But I think you're going to get a little bit different answer because I know some of you work at universities where 100 is fairly normal class size. My son's touring campus. I know you and I were talking about UNT earlier. Those lecture halls are much bigger than any classroom he's ever been in. And so, you know, a little bit it comes on the back end as well is, you know, giving students the agency to go to office hours. And that's another thing that I've done as well. I don't call them office hours on my syllabus. They're called student help hours. And I try to make it as clear as I can that, you know, that's not when I've locked the door to my office and don't come bother me because I'm working. That is when the door to my office is open, the chairs are pushed back, the snacks are out. Y'all get in here and let's talk. And whether that's about what's going on in your life or whether that's about what to do in this assignment, in teaching students, you know, they don't always come to college with that lingo that you and I use on a daily basis. If I say office hours, you know, that's when I can go get help. But if you're talking a first gen college student, first time in college student, they don't always know that lingo. And so trying to tweak the language that we use to be a language that they're going to recognize and then take advantage of.
Thank you. Now, I assume that you've been talking about in-person learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you think all this translates into online learning?
That is where I am still trying to connect the dots. I have 3 online classes right now. And the way my online classes are run, they are completely asynchronous. And so if you put my students in a line and said which ones, I couldn't do it. I've never met them. And so some of the things that I do in my online class to kind of ease that way is I use Teams frequently. Hey, I know that you live in Dallas and you might not even be able to get to my campus because of how far away we are. So you and I can have face-to-face conversations in Teams. Sometimes it's also being aware as several of you are in this session. You're not on your camera, and that's perfectly fine in the world in which I live. You know, some of our students, they live in homes that they probably don't feel comfortable me seeing into that home as I can in some cases of some of you who are attending today. And so just kind of trying to lower the objections that students have. Another one that I've been doing for about 5 years and has had great success. It has gone wrong twice. Is I give students my cell phone number, and they can actually communicate with me via text or they can call me on the phone. Yes, I have had two students who have abused that privilege, and we've had to have conversations about how that number was really meant to be used. But overall, my students have used it very well. And it's just another way to kind of communicate and kind of give them a sense that they belong, even on a classroom where they could be coming from miles away, or in some of your cases, states away. You know, there could be a student at the UAGC who lives in Maine, and but trying to make them feel as if they belong, just little bitty changes that we can make. Um, and I think it's just one of those things that we're going to have to collect that data on. This worked. Let's keep doing it. That didn't work. Let's see if it's a minor tweak or a total rewrite.
Well, thank you. Are there any other questions before we leave? We still have a
Thank y'all
couple
for
minutes.
attending, and enjoy the rest of your day if it's early in the morning, and your afternoon if you're kind of east of Arizona like I am. And I think Arizona is going to make these presentations available. But if you want to send me an email, I can send you my PowerPoint as well. Um, they're usually pretty good about getting stuff out pretty quick. But if it's taking a little bit longer, you want to send me an email and I'll send it to you that way.
Well, thank you so much. Uh, Thank you, Dr. Cedor, and thank you to the audience for your participation in today's session. Please use the survey linked in the chat to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and share your feedback on this presentation. And I hope you will all enjoy the rest of the conference.